The too long didn't watch of this video is, if you think the headshot multiplier being 2.0 is a real problem with the game, you desperately need to improve at the game in order to have a better understanding. Recently I've noticed a resurgence of whining about the headshot multiplier in PlanetSide 2. While bad players have, of course, historically whined about anything in the game that gives power to skilled players, I find that when every major update inevitably loses a big chunk of its gains, the shitters get together and have a sensing session where they try to suss out what areas of the game they still have an intact skill gap in, and then they focus all of their energy on trying to get that changed because they don't like and are bad at FPS games. Maybe the problem in the first place is that somehow an FPS game doesn't seem to attract any FPS players, decent or otherwise. We kind of fall into a dangerous predicament here wherein the developer launches an update that fixes no real problems with the game. People come back to play it for a short time, realize nothing is fundamentally different, and quit again. This drop in population is of course always falsely attributed to new players getting farmed by veterans, and when you base your entire worldview on the game around that false premise, you start to offer solutions to problems that don't exist in the first place. When you misidentify the problem, you're always going to misidentify its solution. To keep this brief and as streamlined as possible, I'm specifically going to address changing the multiplier from its current value to a 1.6 multiplier, as this is roughly around the area I see them wanting to have it changed to. So let's get right to it. Your 143 damage weapons become a 5-shot headshot kill, up from 4. Your 167s become a 4 headshot kill, up from 3. Your 200 damage weapons become 4 headshot kill, up from 3. The 125 damage weapons become 5 headshot kills, up from 4. One thing to notice here right off the bat is the obvious degradation of the lower rate of fire weapons. 167s and 200 damage weapons are now both 4 headshot kills. In raw time to kill, the 167 and 200 damage weapons take a 50% nerf or increase in their theoretical time to kill numbers here. The 143 and 125 weapons get away slightly less worse off, with both coming in at roughly 33% TTK degradation. So with our current multiplier, we run a tidy 200 milliseconds to 240 milliseconds range for headshot time to kill. All of the damage models for automatic weapons fall into a nice 40 millisecond range headshot disparity. With a 1.6 multiplier, now we've doubled that range to 80 milliseconds, ranging from 280 milliseconds on the low end to 360 ms on the high end. Is this a deal breaker? Probably not. If you're just looking at everything here at a very surface level, I don't really have much concern with increasing the range disparity between headshot time to kill values by 40 milliseconds. In this picture, I've set up for you some values, and I've just used the Gauss saw as an example here. In the left column, I've laid out the headshot multiplier, nanoweave body, and the non-nanoweave body values, and on the right, I've laid out the theoretical nerfed headshot multiplier along with the other two values. I want to play with this. They want to play with this. One of these setups has a 2-bullet disparity between headshots and body shots. The other has a 3-bullet difference. You know, for a group of players seemingly obsessed with calling out skilled players for supposedly crutching on the headshot and body shot disparity of the gunplay of the game, they certainly don't seem to think very hard about the changes they throw out. See, that's where we differ. If I'm not good enough to do something, my entire life's goal isn't to bring everyone else down to my level. These people remind me of someone that joins a basketball rec league, can't shoot a 3-point shot, and petitions the league to bring the line in or just remove it altogether. If I join that league and can't shoot a 3 reliably, I'm going to be in the gym working on it. I'm going to invest time and effort into improving. These other people, they don't care about that. They join a game they wrongly understand to be Arma in space, expect to have little to no ability with little to no effort to do anything in the game and be rewarded for it. Then they run into guys like me who put them down in 240 ms, and then the entire system has to be changed because they just can't be bothered. If the game doesn't offer them an immediate solution to their problem and any outside effort is involved, they either quit completely or stay playing but petition the designers of the game to implement some game design communism. It's like how I can take long extended breaks from the game, come back to it, and perform just as well, if not better in most cases, playing in exactly the manner I've played in since 2014. Why? I really think it has to do with just how there's absolutely nothing in the game that incentivizes any kind of skilled FPS gameplay actions. Why do any of that stuff when there's just low skill, high reward alternatives everywhere? That, and it just doesn't take much effort or ability for the average worm in this game to be successful. Thought experiment some random base battle. 80 to 90% of the players there are useless doorway stumps that do basically nothing for the entirety of the fight. 5 to 6 players that actually have ability flank around, clear out a bunch of the other doorway stumps, and they take a timeout to kill a bunch of spawns instantly, and bam, the fight is over and you've won the base. Now, the 80 to 90% of those useless players I mentioned before didn't really do shit the entire time besides exist at the fight and play poorly, but they still won, right? They merely existed at a base fight and won it. How do you beat that? What's the incentive for some useless med tool bot to get better at the game? All he does is blindly run around reviving people, and he wins some bases, he loses some bases. If he ends up in a blob of other relatively useless players like himself, and there just so happens to be one guy that can pull a spawn or put a waypoint down on the map, he's probably going to go down a lattice line and win a whole bunch. One of the only things that incentivizes a skilled gameplay action in this game is the current headshot multiplier. Of course, useless players that can't aim and refuse to learn or improve at the game absolutely hate anything that incentivizes learning and improving. I do find it kind of funny that the same players who shill for nanoweave or claim it's not a problem are the same people that find the headshot to body shot disparity to be a problem and then call for nerfs to the multiplier. This is galaxy brain stuff here. So anyway, does nerfing the headshot multiplier to 1.6 bring headshots closer in line with body shots? If you remove the 20% resistance nanoweave gives, then yes. If you ignore nanoweave, you haven't solved anything. What you have done, however, is given more power to groups of players. This is something that you don't see them ever bring up, mostly because I think they're just too stupid to understand the concept, but there are some people who know this to be true, but hide it because it reveals their true intention, which is to make Zerg balls stronger. When you artificially limit the potential damage output and killing power of an individual player, you're automatically making groups of players stronger, and I really don't think that's the current problem in this game. In fact, one of the biggest detriments to playing this game is dealing with blobs of population, since there aren't any mechanics in the game that discourage you just pop dumping on absolutely everything. Of course, your average worm that regards a nerf to the headshot multiplier as a good change can't see the game outside of anything but a 1v1, because 1v1s are his biggest obstacle in the game, since most of the time he can't win any. Now take a good player. The focus is no longer on individual engagements, but on the next and the next and the next. Good luck trying to get someone that rarely wins one gunfight per life to understand this overarching concept. Increasing the time to kill, in any sense, never favors the low ability individual in his single engagements. Skilled players excel at isolating individual engagements. The frustration a low ability individual feels is not remedied by lowering the top end damage a skilled player can output. This person will still be frustrated. Now, in addition to this, you've now frustrated your skilled player base in dealing with numbers, as it is now that you've had your upper end of damage potential nerfed. The skilled player is now less able to deal with the numbers he faces on a regular basis. So congratulations, you've managed to aggravate both subsets of players, and you didn't even come close to solving the issue you initially set out to solve. For the life of me, I cannot understand a player base that consistently defends nanoweave as essential to their survival when it is the primary factor in the disparity between body shot and headshot outcomes. It makes even less sense to me when the automatic weapons in this game are as accurate as they are when used properly and the head hitbox is so forgiving. It comes from a complete lack of understanding and self-application that someone would advocate for a reduced skill ceiling from the gunplay of the game instead of removing a suit slot that actively cucks lower ability players at all times. Perhaps instead of asking for the designer to lower the skill ceiling in the game and telling skilled players to leave and go play something else, do yourself a favor and ask why you refuse to even attempt to improve at basic shooter game mechanics. If you haven't even bothered to improve at something you do for hundreds or even thousands of hours, why should anyone bother listening to your game design suggestions? Nerfing the headshot multiplier doesn't solve any of your problems. It just gimps the upper end of the potential you can aspire to grow to and frustrates everyone that already understands how to play the game. At the current moment, and despite all the shit Rel has gotten over the years, I really don't think he would be stupid enough to push this kind of change through, but I have seen plenty of examples in other games of idiotic groupthink from people who don't really care or understand anything about the games they play, influence design decisions that make absolutely no sense.